Okay, now that you have your employees and expenses all set up in Cambue, you're ready to take advantage of one of the most powerful features of Cambue called scenarios. So let's check that out. So we'll click on scenarios and we'll add a new scenario here. Okay, so we'll give it a name. And let's say this is the current scenario. So in other words, with your current set of employees and your current expenses, what's this going to look like? For position, this is just where it appears on the list. So we can say, appears in position 1. And include all employees and include all expenses. So by default, what this will do is all the employees that you set up and all the expenses that you set up over here, these will be included in this scenario. So we'll hit submit. Okay, and then the current scenario has been created there. So we click on current. And here you can see the breakdown of everything. So what this is going to do is it's going to give you a lot of important information here. So, at the very top, you kind of have a summary of how much everything is costing you per month. So based on the information that you entered for each employee and for the expenses, the company spends about $15,000 per month. Now, based on a couple bits of other pieces of data that you have here, there's kind of some interesting figures over to the right of this table. So based on things like the billable hours that you put in for John, Jane, and Jill, you can actually see how much you should, at minimum, be charging per employee. So for example, for John here, we have the cost per billable hour. So per billable hour, John is costing you about $57.26. So at minimum, if he's being billed out to a customer, at minimum, you should be charging $57 per hour to the customer. And you can kind of see a lot of interesting figures here. Now, the expenses that you list down here, these will automatically be broken down into the different people. So here you have, a car that's costing you $200 per month and a billing system that's costing you $500 per year. What that's doing is it's adding up that total cost per year and dividing it among the 3 employees. So you can see here, per employee, those group expenses cost about $966 there. So you can see the group expenses on that. Now we can get a little bit more sophisticated that with groups, but that is in a different video. So you can kind of see the breakdown of all this. And where this kind of gets interesting is you can start to play around with these figures and start to plan for the future as well. So this is one scenario, and maybe I don't want to touch this scenario because this is my current state, and I kind of want a snapshot of, the company is costing me $15,000 per month, and I should be charging, $57 per hour for John, $50 for Jane, and $55 for Jill at minimum. So let's see what this looks like if we want to plan for the future and if we want to play around with these things a little bit. So what I can do is I can go back to the scenarios, and I'm going to create a different scenario. Okay, so let's call this scenario, September 2021. So I'm planning for the future here. And, put this in position 2. Okay, so I'll view September 2021. So all this information is the same, but what I can do now is I can start to play around with these figures, okay? So let's say Jane is getting paid $28, and Jill's getting paid $30 per hour, and John's paid $25 an hour. What if I wanted to see what would happen if I gave these people a raise? So let's unlock this table here, and let's start to increase these people's wages, okay? So for Jill, let's pay her $35 an hour. And let's pay Jane $30, maybe $32 an hour. And let's bump John up to, say, $28 an hour. Now, as the road turns gray, that just means it's going to take some time to save. And then when that disappears, it's all saved. So you're all good on that. And then we can lock that. And you'll see we instantly get a snapshot of how much more your company is going to be costing you. And all these things update in real time. So you also get an instant view of, okay, now we got to charge more per hour for these employees, right? And that goes for a lot more than just the wages. You can actually edit pretty much all the significant figures here, right? So, how much you're paying them per hour, how many hours they're working per week, if they're working any overtime hours, the buffer we talked about, if they're working more billable hours or less billable hours, okay? So for example, let's say Jill actually has to, dedicate more of her time to, say, some company growth, and that time's not really billable. So let's say Jill, is reduced down to $23 hours per week of billable time. Well, you can see her cost per billable hour now goes up to like $69, right? So you can edit all those. And what's more, is you can start to add things like extra employees. So let's say I want to consider a new hire. So I could say add a blank entry. And now what I can do is I have a new employee here. And let's say this new employee, we're going to hire them at $20 per hour, and they're going to work, say, part-time at 15 hours per week. All right, all this updates, and you get an instant snapshot of what that's going to look like. So this is one of the really big powers of Cambue. It's all about visualizing new scenarios and understanding what it's going to be like if you give people raises, if you hire new people. You kind of get an instant snapshot of how much your business is costing you, and also things like how much you should be charging at minimum per hour for the employees. You can also do the same thing with expenses. So let's say you want to add a new expense, right? Let's say you want to get a new company car here, right? So we'll say add a blank entry. And let's say we'll have a second company car, and let's say that costs $200 per month as well. We can do it like that, and then we're done. And you can see the group expenses then goes up at that point, right? So the group expenses now goes up to $1,325 per month, or sorry, per year. So that got added to the total cost, and there you go. So hopefully that gives you ideas of some of the power of Cambue. In future videos, we'll talk about some more sophisticated expense splitting with groups.